sacrifice freedom in the name of security, then we end up in an authoritarian regime. Therefore, we are trying hard to apply these principles both inside Turkey but also in the region and in our engagement with other countries. That's why we consider the Palestinian or the Middle East peace process a key component of this foreign policy, because there the issue is the same: Israel's security versus the Palestinian right to an independent state, Palestinian aspirations for freedom. Now, we believe that one doesn't have to come at the expense of the other. How are we going to strike a balance between the two? That's the key question there. And how are we going to implement it while addressing Israel's security concerns, but also the security concerns of the Palestinians and their aspirations for an independent state that will be viable, that will be sustainable. Third important principle is prosperity, generating and sharing prosperity. Turkey has been making strides, as you know, in recent years through its economic development. Turkey's GDP has gone up, off the roof. Turkey is now almost a $750 billion economy, 17th, or according to some new estimations, 16th largest economy in the world and the 6th largest in Europe. And Turkey has become a major economic power in its region. Now, those economic interests are also important for our foreign policy. Because now Turkey is not only generating prosperity and wealth for its own citizens, but also projecting this to its region. In the last 4 years, I don't have the exact number, but I think it's somewhere about 30–35%. Turkey has increased its trade with its neighbors for about 30–35%. Now, we believe that that is very much in line with this good neighborhood or zero problem with neighbors policy. You don't have a single successful economic model for any country that does not have this kind of an economic relationship, trade relationship with its neighbors. Look at Europe, look at the United States, and other examples in Asia. We are not pursuing any new economic pacts or associations, but look at the examples of the European Union, in Europe, NAFTA here in North America, ASEAN in Southeast Asia. If you look at all of these different forms of economic cooperation and partnership, they all reflect this underlying issue of having good relations with your neighbors and doing trade with them. But generating power, prosperity, and wealth in itself is not the goal. You have to share it with others. That's an element of justice. It's an important way of ensuring legitimacy, but also sharing the wealth with your neighbors so that they benefit and you benefit from that. To use a term that the German philosopher Fred Dallmayr used to describe this relationship, we believe this is a process of mutual empowerment. That is, through this policy, Turkey empowers itself, but also empowers others for a regional stability. And of course, this economic development has to be sustainable, etc. Now, just one more point on this issue of economic development and how economics plays an important role in Turkish foreign policy. The business people, the business community in Turkey have become one of the driving forces of new Turkish foreign policy. Turkish foreign policy has now many new agents and actors. It's shaped by these new emerging groups of businessmen, educationists, scholars, students, aid workers, humanitarian aid organizations, and so on and so forth. Turkey, for example, has become one of the most important donor countries in the last 7 or 8 years through our aid agency, reaching almost, I think, more than $500 million or so per year, our foreign aid in so many different countries. I think about 30 countries from the Balkans to Central Asia to the Middle East, North Africa, and other places. So Turkey is becoming a major donor country, and these are all reflections of Turkey's economic power. Now, fourth important principle is a term that is a bit, that requires a subtle discussion because it's a delicate concept, because as soon as I utter it, all kinds of other things come up in people's mind, but let me try. The fourth important principle is identity. In addition to security, freedom, and prosperity, there is the question of identity. That is, people's self-perception. Who are we? The big question of who we are, where we belong, what is our mission in our foreign policy, or if you want to put it as a more philosophical question, what is our mission in this life, etc. But not to go that deep in our foreign policy. conference, that's my philosophy background there. But the question of identity, that who we are, remains an important question. Now, when I say this, I point to also an important element in international relations in the 21st century. As we have seen throughout the 20th century and the 21st century, the question of identity has remained a key component for all nations around the world. Whether in the United States, before or after 9/11, the question of who are we has remained a very pertinent question. The question applies to many other nations, in China, in Russia. I mean, the biggest debate in Russia right now is not about nuclear energy, it's not about economic power, it's about who the Russians are, or what kind of people they will be in the 21st century. In Europe, the debate about Europe, the European Union that is also a debate about European identity. Now, the same principle applies to Turkey, because we have been asking this question ourselves as well. Now, the way we answer this reflects the many subtleties of the Turkish experience. Turkey is at once a country that belongs to the East and to the West. Of all the Muslim countries, Middle Eastern countries, Turkey has the most extensive, longest relationship with the Western world, with Europe. As a result of that, Turkey is a negotiating country for full membership in the European Union with Europe. This is not an empty ambition for Turkey. We believe that there are structural, historical reasons for Turkey's goal to be a full member in the European Union. And we believe that those values that we share with Europe help us in that process. But unfortunately, so far, Europeans have been very confused about Turkey as a reflection of their own problems within Europe about the enlargement, about what the European Union should be like or will be like in the 21st century. But the question of identity remains an important element in Turkish domestic politics, but also in foreign policy. There, when we engage with our Western friends, but also with our Muslim friends, Muslim neighbors, Western countries and Eastern countries, we do not feel that we live an identity crisis. Turkey has moved beyond the thinking of oppositional identities. That is, we don't think that our historically Turkish Muslim cultural identity is in any essentialist way contradictory to our attempts to embrace the values of democracy, human rights, rule of law, transparency, the values that have originated from the West but have become universal values now shared by all people. We don't think that there is a contradiction there. We no longer think in terms of this oppositional identity as East versus West. Therefore, when people raise these criticisms against Turkey, that Turkey is moving away from the West by a further engagement in the East with Syria, with Iran, etc., or further in Afghanistan and other places, we simply look at this discussion as something that really belongs to this categorical thinking, black and white thinking of the Cold War era. I think the identities have become much more sophisticated in the 21st century. And one important element, and I'll finish with this on this point, is that we still need to overcome the problem of Eurocentrism in world politics. That is, the idea of reading history from a Eurocentric point of view. The idea that the march of history somehow began in Europe and still continues in Europe, with some little parentheses in between, such as the Islamic world, such as China, such as the Ottomans, etc. But eventually, the march of history is through Europe, European culture and civilization and art and politics and media and education, etc. That needs to be overcome.